Beautiful. Okay, perfect. So once again, so my name is Cyrus Fernandez, Professional Development Coordinator here in Human Resources. Um, and I'm happy to present or help facilitate today's departmental training for the Student Instructional Support Team. And so hopefully everybody's had a chance to kind of take a look at the agenda as well as the tutoring plan that was attached to the calendar invite. If not, I'll put it in the chat feature in just one moment. We'll just be reviewing mission values, guiding principles, and goals for the first half, and then and we have a second presentation later on in the day as well too. But let's see. Hopefully this works out. Oh, dang it. Okay, so going over the agenda, we'll be discussing the topic of the team's mission, values, goals, as well as a purpose. We'll be going over, Wendy will be delivering a couple updates on GPS as well as WC Online for the good of the team, just to update on policies, not policies, procedure-wise, what's going on with that. There will be a 15-minute break. We realize that a 3-hour session is pretty long and pretty lengthy. And so we want to make sure that we respect everybody's natural rhythms and things of that nature. And just for the fact that sometimes we just do need to check up on our emails every so often because we still have students that we're still servicing. And then we'll have another presentation by our presenter on combating in-group and out-group bias as well as allyship, and then we'll just wrap it all up. And so I'll actually turn it over to Wendy if you had any couple words or a couple comments that you want to mention to the team. I'll definitely turn it over to you if you'd like.
I see in the chat some people are saying that they can't hear. Can you all hear me? Some people are saying their audio's fine. Some people are saying
it was spotty for several minutes. It seems like it's now clear.
Okay, yeah, because I could hear Cyrus fine too. So okay. I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. I really want to start off by saying Happy New Year to everyone, and just for thanking everyone for all the hard work you've done. Who knew we'd be 2 years into this pandemic with seems like no end in sight? And I just think you guys have been phenomenal in the way that you have been servicing our students. And I'm glad that you are here to give the support to our students. I'll talk more later on about some things that are coming down for us. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy and can walk away with something meaningful today. I really, really wanted you guys to for us to be able to really talk about what the mission and the goal is for tutoring going forward, because I feel like we have some really important work to do around that. And so with no further ado, we'll just go ahead and go on with the program today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Wendy. And for the folks that probably didn't get a chance to look at today's document, I just put the document in the chat. So give me a thumbs up if you were able to see it and open it, and give me a party hat emoji if you have difficulty accessing the document. I can try and email it to you. Okay, so I see a lot of thumbs ups. Perfect. Awesome. Beautiful. Great. And so let me minimize that screen and then let's go here. All right. So mission, values, goals. These are mission, vision, values, goals are some of the words that we use to describe that are part of a larger planning process called strategic planning. And so strategic planning oftentimes is very much it starts off as an internal document a lot of the times, where managers, supervisors, and a team kind of get together to kind of craft this official statement, this official process that's going to go on within the team itself. And a lot of times people do wonder, what is the point of strategic planning? What is the purpose of strategic planning? And I think that's what we'll be going over today. why this document was created, how this document can be implemented, and how this document can help guide the team to a destination, an end goal, and things of that nature coming into the new year. So this presentation comes at a very good time to kind of to grab a team together to kind of collectively learn, and then to just even expose yourself to what is your team's strategic plan, mission, vision, values, and goals. So let's see. So why strategic plan? Strategic plans create a single forward-focused vision for the entire team. Oops. Sorry, my apologies. Let me enable the transcription moment. Thank you for that. So why do we do a strategically plan? To create a single forward-focused vision of how the team is imagined and how the team will operate moving forward. It draws attention to the product or the service that your organization provides. That statement itself was strategic plans are heavily used in business and industry worlds, and a lot of high-profile companies display aspects of a strategic plan on their company websites and things of that nature to kind of just say, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we provide, and this is how our product, our service is unique, different, what distinguishes us from other competitors within the business realm. But there's a lot of aspects that can certainly be applied in a higher education context, and specifically within our SMC Santa Monica jurisdiction as well too. It allows the organization to track progress based on the goals. And so a good strategic plan usually encompasses 4 unique aspects, which include the mission, the vision, interchangeably values and goals, as well as guiding principles. And the tutoring plan that's been shared with everyone was created by Wendy and Wendy's fantastic circle of folks that has created this tutoring plan for everyone. But to finish it off, why we strategic plan is to induce a behavioral change within an organization. A strategic plan usually sets down the task, the gauntlet, so to say, of this is where we're going, this is what we hope to accomplish, and how we're going to get there is all detailed within the plan itself. So I'll move on to the next slide. So mission in a business
Cyrus,
sense,
the slide didn't, oh, there we go. I was going to say the slide didn't advance. Okay.
Oh, my apologies. A little bit of a delay, my apologies. So yes, so when we talk about the mission or a mission statement, oftentimes in the business world, this is required. Like it's a good statement to have, especially when you're communicating outwardly to an audience that may not be familiar or used to what the company or the organization is offering. It's the story of the business or the organization and the purpose of what they do, and communicates it outwardly to stakeholders, customers. In our SMC context, it communicates it outwardly to the public, our students. But the mission statement also communicates inward to the stakeholders that we have here at SMC. It communicates to other departments. What is the charge? What is the task that this specific organization will do? Oftentimes, there's within a mission itself, there's the business mission as well as the social mission. The business mission, you'd guess to think that what the business mission do was just set out what the business does or what the organization does. But the social mission is similar. The business mission as well as the social mission can combine together to provide an overall image of what the company or the organization is set to do. It is meant to be a very clear and concise expression of what the organization does. So by very definition, it's meant to be short, brief, concise, and very accessible to anybody who's reviewing it. And so The two that I have right here are just examples of other businesses and other organizations that have their mission statements. And a lot of times we think mission statements are the grand, long statement that guides the entire organization. But oftentimes you'll be surprised to find that a mission statement can sometimes just be a sentence, sometimes a sentence or two, and others take a lot of liberties and make it a very long statement. But so for instance, Kickstarter, if for those who are not familiar with Kickstarter, the name is pretty synonymous with starting any endeavor that requires any financial backing from its customers to kind of help get a product to market. So that's what Kickstarter, the company, does. But Kickstarter's mission is very simple: to help bring creative projects to life. And so, very simply, that's what Kickstarter aims to do. DocuSign is very similar. DocuSign is another company that that enables others to send and manage signatures on documents digitally. And so DocuSign, that's the company itself, but DocuSign's mission itself is enabling anybody to sign, send, and manage documents anytime, anywhere, on any device with confidence. And so a lot of times these portions of a mission statement can be actually really helpful for organizations whenever they have a PR team or whenever they want to communicate to others. What exactly do they do? In a brief soundbite, what does SMC do? In a brief soundbite, what does the Student Instructional Support Team do? And so within the tutoring plan itself, the SMC tutoring plan for this group, the mission is the program decisions will promote equity and access, particularly to historically underserved populations. Tutors will continuously be trained in effective tutoring practices and intercultural competence. So within the chat feature, go ahead and for those in the chat feature, what are the first few impressions that anybody generates whenever we read the tutoring SMC's tutoring plan's mission statement? What kind of thoughts come to mind? I'll give everybody a moment to. Jessica, great, access. Thank you for that. Loretta, yes, the continual aspect of it, that it's an ongoing process, that it's subject to growth, to revision, and things of that nature. Very good. Service, of course, yes. It is a reminder for of our goals as tutors. Very good, Lisa. Yeah, and we'll discuss more of the goals in a couple slides as we advance to it. Underserved populations. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. So it seems like we're highlighting certain aspects of the mission that are there. And if you feel a little bit confused about mission, you're going to feel a little bit more confused when we talk about vision. But hopefully, in the next slide, after the next slide, the distinction will be drawn between the two. Thank you. Thank you, Judith. Missed opportunities. Great comments, great impressions so far. So just to read one more time the mission for the team. The program decisions will promote equity and access, particularly for historically underserved populations. Tutors will continuously be trained in effective tutoring practices and intercultural competence. Okay. Now, vision. The vision statement itself is meant to be an exciting, far-reaching statement itself. It's think back to whenever someone has a personal vision for themselves. Maybe you probably have a new vision of yourself in this new year, that by the end of this year or within 5 years or 10 years, I will be at a different place. And that's essentially what a vision is supposed to be. It's supposed to be long-ranging, 5, 10, 15-year mark of where the organization wants to be. And so it's a picture of where you want to be in a certain amount of time and where it is headed. Mission and vision statements are oftentimes confused with one another, but vision statements have that keen focus on being future facing. This is the destination we're trying to get to, if that makes sense. And so LinkedIn, I think everybody's familiar with LinkedIn to a certain degree as a business social media platform, but LinkedIn itself, their vision statement is to create economic opportunity for everyone of the global workforce. So let's just focus on LinkedIn's vision statement for just 1 second. It reads, I'll read it one more time. To create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. In the chat, for anybody that uses LinkedIn, does LinkedIn do that? I'll give everybody a moment to think, cogitate on the answer. Does LinkedIn, just by their vision statement alone, does it do what it does? Does it do what it purports to do? No. Okay. Yes. That correct. That's actually the answer I'm looking for. Yeah, I tried to as well too, Wendy. Yeah. And so, Jose, yes and no. It all depends. Yes, absolutely. That's a really great statement. Yes and no. Because the vision to create economic opportunity, let's start with those 4 words. To create economic opportunity, that in itself is a huge endeavor a huge statement to unpack. What do we mean by the economic opportunity? All kinds of economic opportunity, only digital? Is it based on the network the social network that you have that you can leverage that helps promote economic opportunity? And then the latter half, for every member of the global workforce. Can any social media platform attempt to do that? To provide a service for every member of the global workforce? Great answer, Lisa. No, not necessarily, or at least to say, not right now. Who knows that in the next 5, 10 to 15 years, yes, very good, Karen. I think that's where I'm going, that they at least can attempt to. And that's what a really good vision statement does, is that it doesn't spell out the day-to-day operations of what the group is going to do or what even the business is going to do, or the business does on a daily basis, but it's projecting, it's forecasting into the future where they want to be, and whether or not the goals are still the goals that when it was created within a strategic plan are still relevant or even updated. Take a look at LinkedIn's vision statement. It at least provides a direction that while LinkedIn cannot provide create total economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce, why not try? What's wrong with having that kind of vision? And so a lot of times what distinguishes a mission and a vision is that a mission tells what the organization is currently doing. The vision is telling you this is where we're going to try and head towards. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if the distinction has been made. Give me a party hat emoji if it hasn't. All right, we got a couple thumbs up, All right. Let's see. All right. Okay, sounds good. So these two topics alone are oftentimes very confusing. So I'll take a moment to kind of take a pulse check. Does anybody have any questions so far about what's been presented? Give me a smiley face emoji if you have a question or would like to pose a comment verbally or in the chat. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll just continue to move on then. So we got mission, we got vision. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to actually read the vision statement that was in the tutoring plan, but does anybody feel strongly about going unmute and want to take a chance at reading the vision statement aloud for everyone?
Is it the
Go
one?
for it, Jessica.
Is it the one just the smaller version?
Correct. The one at the very bottom.
Okay. Let me get my broadcaster voice here.
I love it.
Santa Monica College will provide students with multiple options to access tutoring support inside and outside the classroom. Tutoring will assist students in becoming critical thinkers, as well as independent, self-reflective, lifelong learners. Oh, I like that.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica. And for being one of my brave volunteers, you get a yoga mat from the Classified Professional Development Committee. So thank you. Yes, this is I have plenty of prizes for a lot of people. So so I highly encourage everybody to keep participating. So thank you, Jessica. I'll have that sent to you some way or another, and we'll have it for you ready for you by next week. So great. Thank you, Jessica. So yeah, does anybody have any thoughts on the vision statement itself? Santa Monica College will provide students with multiple options to access tutoring support inside and outside the classroom. Tutoring will assist students in becoming critical thinkers as well as independent, self-reflective, lifelong learners. I guess the one question that I could rearrange this is, as a vision statement, is it forward thinking? Can anybody give me a thumbs up if you can see an aspect of it that is very forward thinking? Party hat emoji if you don't. Awesome. Okay, we got a couple thumbs up. Good, good, good. So I like the entirety of the vision statement, but let's break it down a little bit. So the first sentence, Santa Monica College will provide students with multiple options to access tutoring support inside and outside the classroom. That statement alone does not tell you how you're going to do your job, but once again, forecasting into future will provide multiple options to access tutoring support inside and outside the classroom. So whether or not if these processes are currently going on right now, that's the direction that we're trying to head towards. Tutoring will assist students in becoming critical thinkers as well as independent, self-reflective, and lifelong learners. Would anybody be willing to say in the chat that once a tutoring, when you meet with a student, when you meet with a student and you conduct your tutoring session, does a student automatically leave with the sense of becoming a critical thinker, independent, self-reflective, or a lifelong learner? And there is an easy answer to this. Karen, thank you. Probably not. Probably not. Because in that instance that you do have with that student, the hour long, the 45-minute long, or 30-minute instance with that student that you are tutoring, it's not enough time to develop, to become a critical thinker, to be independent, self-reflective, and lifelong learner. But what's wrong? But there's nothing wrong with trying to get to that state, that level of self-awareness for that student. And so between how we can develop students to become critical thinkers as well as independent, self-reflective, and lifelong learners, it's going to take a lot of time. It might not be instantaneous. It might not be within the first 6 months, three weeks. It might be 5 years down the line. It might be 2 years down the line. And the effects of, say, one's tutoring session may not be felt immediately then at that moment, but it realigns students to be along that track. And going back to the mission statement, my apologies. Going back to the mission statement, when we say tutors will continuously be trained in effective tutoring practices and intercultural competence, that's one mission that's informing the vision to say, if the tutors don't have the training or the competence, the intercultural competence now, let's find opportunities for this team to help assist students to become critical thinkers and things of that nature. Do you see how that works? A thumbs up emoji if you do, party hat emoji if you don't. Awesome. See a lot of a lot of thumbs up. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you for those that are providing thumbs up. Any questions between mission and vision statements? And if you do have a question, you're more than welcome to post it in the chat, or pose or go off mute, and pose your question there. All right, no questions so far, but I actually wanted to check in with Wendy. Wendy, did you want to share a comment or a thought about or that I may have missed by any chance?
Not really anything that you've missed. I think that especially with the vision, is that, and when we talk about students becoming critical thinkers and independent and self-reflective, I think that the way that we do our tutoring and giving them the tools to become critical thinkers and independent and self-reflective. And I think there's a way that people do that that can happen even within one session, because you may just give them one strategy that allows them to be able to walk away and say, oh, now if I encounter this again, I can do this on my own, or now I see how I need to tackle this problem. So I do think that, again, just the way that we are tutoring can allow them, as far as the vision, to become those things. And it doesn't have to be like all the time that they're there, getting that tutoring from us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. Very good point. Yes. Let's see, going over my notes. Okay. All right. So we have the mission, we have the vision. Let's talk about the goals. Goals are pretty self-explanatory. They're the end destination. They're the end point that we're all trying to reach. And so when we combine the mission and the vision, we have the tagline, right? Of what we do. We have the vision of where we're gonna go in the future. But what exactly are we gonna target? What goals do we need to meet? What are we gonna where are we gonna land with all these endeavors? And so the purpose of the goal is actually to not just provide an endpoint to say like, did we meet it or did we not, but also along the way drive different outcomes entirely. So whenever, say, like a new goal has been made, let's see, what was I trying to say? Whenever a goal has been set down and so forth, they may be ambiguous. They may not have a quantifiable end. Sometimes they may be a skills-based goal. And so in the multitude of ways that goals can be created and things of that nature, they do provide an endpoint, so to say. And anything that happens between tutoring and between the current tutoring and then the goals of the team itself, a lot of things can happen that can either promote, impact, or impede a tutor's ability to reach that goal. But specifically, we'll go over the goals that's within the tutoring document itself. And there's a couple goals that are there. And what I really like about the tutoring guide, that tutoring plan that Wendy's created for the group, is that it shows you where the goal came from. A lot of times in higher education planning, goals are just oftentimes created, disseminated, and communicated out, but a lot of times you don't really get to see, where did that come from? Thumbs up. No, I'm not gonna ask that question. I was gonna say thumbs up if you feel like you've experienced something like that, but I want to say that. But within the first two cells, the initiatives 1 and 2 and the respective goals. Well, the first one comes from the Guided Pathways Redesign goal, which as well as the equity plan metric. And when you take those two initiatives, the objective or the goal is to have, in student support, all students receive proactive academic and non-academic support, increase the persistence, completion, and success of all courses, particularly the ESL and English and math sequences for African American, Latino with an O, an A, and an X students, and other groups experiencing equity gaps. Can you thumbs up if you can see that this is remarkably different from the mission and vision in itself? Party hat emoji if you don't. Awesome, thank you, Jessica. I'll probably say it one more time. Give me a thumbs up if you see that this first goal is remarkably different from mission and vision. And I'm going to ask what makes this specific goal radically different from mission and vision itself. So for anybody that recently put their thumbs up, go ahead and unmute yourself or pose in the chat feature. How is this specific goal remarkably different from the mission and vision? So I think Edwin, go for it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it seems to me it's more specific. I'm looking at number 2. It's targeted to specific groups. So African American, Latino, Latina, Latinx. That wasn't mentioned in the overall mission and vision statements. So that's one of the major differences.
Excellent, Edwin. That is precisely the point I definitely want to hear. Don't worry, Loretta. There's still plenty of points to be made by that. But to Edwin's point, it is very specific. We're talking about who we're serving now, right? Now, and in what courses at that as well too, and other groups that are experiencing equity gaps. So if we don't have just our African American and Latinx students, it's also other groups that are experiencing equity gaps, which is very thoughtful as a goal as well too. So thank you for that, Edwin. And for that, Edwin, you also get a fantastic prize from our contributors from School First as well as Providential Health. So you two will also receive it. We'll find some way to get it to you. So thank you, Edwin.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Loretta, I know you had your hand up. Did you want to share out?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about the word radically different. And in that sense, I don't think that it's radically different. I do think that it is more specific. And I think it's important to be specific in this, in what we do and who we're serving. But I don't believe that it's radically different from the vision. I think it's just sort of more sort of focused, which I don't think is a radical difference.
Right. Maybe I'll take a step back and say, like, do we see? I think what the point that I was trying to make was mission and vision doesn't really spell out what a group will do alone, but the goal will help. So we have mission, we have vision, and then we have the goal, and everything in between. Hopefully, when you take these 3 concepts together, it provides a direction, a rallying point for a group to kind of tackle, get behind, get excited about, to hopefully meet that goal. And I did mention that usually goals have a metric of some kind, something that is measurable. In the business world, we often hear, one of our goals this year is to increase productivity by 15% within this specific department. Fantastic goal. You want to make an improvement and things of that nature. So very good. Very good, very good. Let me make a note real quick. Oops, sorry. Okay. All right, so let's tackle the second goal that is derived from the institutional strategic initiatives and objectives, as well as institutional learning outcomes and support goals. Does anybody want to read the goals for these specific from these 2 specific initiatives? Go for it, Karen.
Okay, and that's 3 and 4, right?
Correct.
Okay, objective or goal, using data and assessment of identified best practices, align the structure and operation of instructional supports, and then provide access to comprehensive student learning resources such as library, tutoring, and technology.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen. Oop. Thank you. All right. So goal number 2, or the second square of goals, using data and assessment of identified best practices, align the structure and the operation of instructional supports, provide access to comprehensive student learning resources such as library, tutoring, and technology. Excellent. Wendy, I'm going to call on you. Did you want to elaborate a little bit on
yeah, because you know, we have people on the in the meeting right now and on the call who don't do tutoring, but they do. We have people that work in the science LRC, and shout out to them. And they, Cindy and Michelle, and they actually hand out a lot of equipment in that tutoring area for students that come in that need well, like an anatomy, sometimes they get the models for that, or other equipment that they need. I can't think of what it's called now, where they look through the, what is it called where you look through the, in chemistry, like you're looking at the samples of things. Well, either way, they hand out a lot of equipment over in the science area. So that is a student support that they give to us. And then we also have Jose and Ann, shout out to them, who are in the modern language lab, and they help the students with software for modern languages, which also is you know, a support and a resource to students. So I feel like with that goal, specifically number 4, it kind of encompasses people in the whole area that's not directly related to actual tutoring. So just wanted to point that out. And yeah, and just in general, I wanted people to be able to see that these are the things that the college has, you know, that affect our area, and that we all should be knowledgeable about that, and thinking about, you know, how are we doing the work in a meaningful way that's able to target and meet these objectives and goals.
Great, thank you, Wendy.
Microscopes, yes, thank you.
I had a feeling that that was what you were saying too.
Yeah, and it's anatomy models, molecular structures, microscopes, measuring devices, other equipment, plus books. So thank you, Paulo. Yes. I was like, I couldn't get it out.
No worries. Thank you, Wendy, for providing that explanation. Thank you, thank you. And we'll move on to the last one. So this one is derived from the Board of Trustees core priorities, number 1. And it's to implement, and the goal and the objective and the goal reads itself: implement to implement multiple measures, guided pathways, and models of support that increase student success. Monitor retention and completion rates, especially for groups of students identified in the student equity plan, including African American, Latino, Latina, and low-income students. So this goal itself is not only identifying who, what, but also the various processes that we are going to try and meet alongside, that we're going to try and meet to meet this goal. Multiple measures, guided pathways, and models of support. Those are a lot of ongoing activities, initiatives, and opportunities that are occurring simultaneously at SMC. We don't get to know, a lot of times, or sometimes we don't get to hear or listen from the people that are actually conducting that kind of work, but we're trying to combine them, implement them within this specific team. Monitor, a really good term, monitor retention and completion rates. Remember when I said that a goal sometimes encompasses a quantifiable aspect? This is one of those quantifiable aspects. That whether we're not trying to meet a productivity goal of 15%, we're not, and things of that nature, but the quantifiable aspect is that we're monitoring it at the very least, the retention and completion rates. So there is a quantifiable aspect that can be had within this goal itself, and specifically for our African American students, Latinx students, and low-income students. And so I think that was the one point that I wanted to take a little bit more time and just say, like, this goal encompasses a lot of sub goals that can be met within it as well too. Goals themselves should be consistent and achievable. There should be a sense that whenever you read a goal, that it has a consistency that all the other goals kind of share with one another, and that it's achievable, that there is some sort of not measurable way, but there is some sort of way that we can get to that. If anybody's been a part of a group project, and anybody that has ambiguously defined a goal, it can be maddening sometimes when the goal itself is not achievable, right? I was working at another institution, and they created a whole strategic plan for the entire college, and the goals. And when I took a look at the goals themselves, we're saying that this is a long-range goal of 15 to 20 years that we want to meet. Now, anybody in the last 2 years knows a lot has happened within the last 2 years that can impede anybody from reaching a 15-year goal. And so sometimes that while goals can be certainly achievable within a certain time frame, goals should be subject to change, modification, refinement over time, in sync with current realities of conducting your work. And so I wanted to share that because especially when I was in my doctoral program in higher education, I used to always think like, wow, that's a pretty big goal with a huge runway of 10 to 15 years. It's like a lot of things can change. Funding could change for the college or university. Leadership changes within a group. Management changes within a group. Even the people who are part of a team will filter in and out. And so long-ranging goals are just fine. Certainly aspirational, but I think the point that I wanted to drive, at least with this one slide, is that goals can be subject to change, refinement along the way, so that goals aren't always set in stone, if that makes sense. Next slide. Guiding principles. Now, in a strategic planning document, not all strategic planning documents will include a portion that says guiding principles. Oftentimes, guiding principles could also be termed as values and used interchangeably, but specifically guiding principles, whenever they're included in a document, specifically outline how the team will engage to meet the goals themselves. So we have the mission, we have the vision, and over here is where we're going to conduct the work. This is where the guiding principles kind of live and carry out the mission and vision when you get to the goal. And so there's 6 guiding principles that's within the tutoring plan itself. And this, I feel, is where where a team can actually take some tangible aspects and translate them to their tutoring styles or things of that nature to help kind of stay on track to meet a goal. So I'll read the first one, the first of the 6 of the guiding principles. And reminder again, guiding principles are how you want your team to engage. So the first one reads, the student experience. Remain focused on student needs. Every tutoring initiative and solution should consider the student experience. So for me, when I read that, and having very little context to Wendy's team or tutoring in general, I can sense that in order to meet the goals that were previously mentioned in the previous slide, that keep an eye and remain focused on the student needs themselves. When a student presents to you within a tutoring session, they're presenting a lot of other identities, a lot of other experiences that they're coming with to that tutoring session that sometimes don't manifest in directly academic, that manifest in direct academic needs. Sometimes when a student comes to you and says, you know, I've been really distracted with this calculus course and things of that nature, and mentions it as a passing comment, that should be a comment that should register to a tutor and says, okay, it sounds like, well, the student may be experiencing other things beyond academics, beyond what's going on at SMC that I should pay attention to. And I'll leave that to you. Leave that to the tutor whether or not if they want to pose a question or or flesh it out as a talking moment within the tutoring session. But it's something that should register at the very least to a tutor, like, oh wow, okay, Bernadette came to my session in anatomy and was mentioning that like she's taking care of a parent at her house. Okay, that's something to be mindful of. To stay focused on that as well too. Who would like to read number 2 on communication? And whoever like to volunteer, go off mute and then read the statement out loud. And did you want to give it a shot?
Communication. Communicate the right message using the appropriate channels in a way that is understandable to the intended audience. Or as I like to say, the negatives are just the goal in disguise.
I like that. I like that. Thank you, Anne. Does anybody have any initial thoughts about that, about the guiding principle number 2? Either post it in the chat or you're allowed to go, or you may go unmute. All right, seeing none. So when we look at this guiding principle, communicate the right message using the appropriate channels in a way that is understandable to the intended audience. Notice within the specific goal, this specific guiding principle, that it's offering many ways to engage with the student. That is either through emails or whatever platforms that the team currently uses to communicate with students. That we're using the appropriate channels that is understandable to the intended audience. That we communicate openly, outwardly, as well as frequently to the students themselves. And so that when I read this guiding principle, it's telling me specifically, like, whoa, wow, like there is a way to conduct business with a student, at the very least. And so, Karen, that's a very good question. Yeah, the right message, open, is it open to interpretation? And so, Wendy, did you want to jump in on that specific statement, or share a little bit?
It would take Karen. Well, I think the right message using the appropriate channels, because I'm looking at what Jessica's talking about, like relating to accessibility, software captioning. And I think just the right message, meaning whatever their particular question may be, or whatever it is that we're trying to get them to do or have a focus on, that we're clear and concise in what we're saying, so that they have an understanding of what that is. So I think that's what I was really meaning by the right message, and not confusing people and giving too much information that doesn't necessarily have to do with whatever it is that we're trying to focus on with the students. The appropriate channels, yeah, there's different ways that we're gonna need to communicate to the students and with the faculty, because we do service, department areas. So just making sure that we're doing that and that everybody's kind of on board with what's going on with us.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. And I think that Wendy, when you're mentioning the right message, communicating the right message, we often hear in student affairs, especially at SMC, is that a student presents to you with a question or a complaint, and then we send a student X, Y, and Z, 14 different places to help them find the answer, which sometimes isn't the right message in itself. If someone were asked me a financial aid question, my response, especially within HR, saying like, "Oh, that's not my question. That's not my area. Go contact financial aid." A different message could be, I don't have that answer to that. That's within the financial aid office. Allow me to connect you with somebody who can provide that answer for you, and maybe sometimes even if it's an email saying, "Have I answered your question in its entirety?" is even just a good way to just say like, "Have I covered the basis? Have I covered your request for information and things of that nature?" So, thank you for that, Wendy. Moving along. Number 3. Culture of collaboration. Find ways to collaboratively engage and meet students' needs. The first response should never be no, but yes and. So I think that the previous example that I just used is that we sometimes, especially when you're in the weeds or if you're pressed to meet a specific deadline, it is an easy way to just say no to a lot of things. But to say that to use yes and keeps that opportunity open for future moments to collaborate with others. So, for instance, when I read this, I think of the many requests that's made of me as within my professional development coordinator position, and my first thought is, and I've learned to tap it out. I don't want to say no to a lot of times. A lot of times I will say, yes, I can definitely be on board with your delivering this, your team's departmental training meeting. Can we pick this up next week and we can set up a date to kind of identify when this meeting would be or when this departmental training would be appropriate for your team. So it's not saying, no, I can't do this right now. It's like saying, hey, thank you for the message. Can we pick? Yes, and let's pick it up. Let's pick up conversations at a future moment. That's what kind of one of the first things that come to my mind whenever I read the culture of collaboration. Number 4, professionalism and integrity. Work hard. Treat students with respect. Consistently deliver innovative support and services. Maintain expert level knowledge through access to the right resources, training, and tools. So that one's a pretty big one. I'll read it again. Professionalism and integrity. Work hard. Treat students with respect and consistently deliver innovative support and services. Maintain expert knowledge through access to the right resources, training, and tools. What I like about this particular statement is the last part. The maintain expert knowledge through access to the right resources, training, and tools, because that signifies to me, if I don't necessarily have the answer or the tools to make this particular tutoring session be beautiful, remarkable, or resilient, I should at least try and find out additional ways of helping, of assisting a student or assisting a faculty member and things of that nature. I used to have a colleague at a previous institution that has been there for roughly 15 years. And if she didn't know the answer, her answer would be like, "Oh, I just don't know it. Nobody ever told me." And I'm just like, "But you don't want to try and go find out the answer with another colleague that might have the answer, or things of that nature, or you don't want to update yourself on any new policies and procedures." And sometimes that response just doesn't cut it. A lot of times, it is okay to say no, I don't know the answer to that. But I think what I'm trying to drive home with this point is saying no and then not doing any other additional ways to kind of help beef up your own knowledge it could be a missed opportunity, if that makes sense.
Can I give an example where someone, I don't want to put him on the spot, but
Go for it.
I'm gonna put him on the spot. But like Edwin, when he was the IA for Black collegians in Adelante, the students would come in and they would have like a difficult professor, and Edwin actually signed up and took the class so that he would know how that professor taught. Now, that's kind of a little extreme, and he's a little crazy like that. But he wanted to make sure that he was able to help those students, and knowing that it was a professor that was very particular about, the way that they wanted things done for their class. So he made sure to find out how to do that, and actually took the class. I mean, he likes math too, so it wasn't like he had to sit through something that he didn't like. But
when I was reviewing
so
too,
that's
so
like
yeah.
that's like the case of somebody just maintaining the knowledge and making sure they know what's going on so that they could give that type of support to students.
That's a great story. That's a great story, Wendy. Kudos to Edwin. Yeah, yeah, that's an extraordinary way to kind of say, like, I still want to know what the students are experiencing, what they're feeling about this course, and things of that nature. I was part of a search committee at one point or another where the candidate was trying to talk about like the gaps within the application process to even apply for at their community college, and this specific person was a dean, filled out an application to just sign up as a student, and reported back like there's a lot of gaps, there's a lot of things that prevent students from even completing an admissions application and things of that nature at their institution. And so sometimes that's just one example of just saying like, oh wow, like you went to an extraordinary length to kind of just say like, yeah, like I wanted to be helpful to my students. I wanted to be helpful to the entire process to kind of just see what was going on with it and things of that nature. So that story reminded me of that specific experience. All right, and the last two guiding principles: ease of use and accessibility. Deliver tutoring services that are intuitive and accessible for all students. Great, yeah. That fantastic guiding principle, especially within a tutoring context, that kind of says, let's smooth the path for our students, right? Let's make it as easy as a process for them to kind of receive the tutoring services that we're trying to provide, and things of that nature. So fantastic guiding principle in itself, and in alignment with overall SMC's equity plan as well too, to provide equity. Work to ensure that SMC students have access to tutoring services. So you can see within these guiding principles that they're not, when we go from the goals themselves that are super explicit, super refined, and with a specific goal in mind, the guiding principles should help facilitate how you're going to reach goal number one, goal number two, and goal number three. Does that, if that makes sense? Thumbs up if that makes sense. Party hat emoji if you'd like for me to explain it a different way. Okay. All right, sounds good. I see a lot of thumbs up, so thank you for that feedback. And so let's see. Let me advance the slide. So in a nutshell, that's the SMC tutoring plan, how we, and the mission, values, mission, vision, guiding principles, and goals for the team. So I highly encourage you to take a look at it one more time if this presentation went by too fast, and to kind of find out ways that you can interject yourself within the strategic plan, and hopefully you do find your way, find ways to say like, this one gravitates towards gravitates to me, and let me see if let me see how I can augment this guiding principle. So and how I can be better within any of these guiding principles themselves to help meet the goal of the team itself. So I do encourage everyone that after this presentation, take a look at it one more time, and find ways that you can attach to, interact, engage with, and let your teammates know, let Wendy know, and see if you're on track, and so forth. So let's see, where are we on the schedule? All right, 11:02, a little bit over. But good thing is we've this next segment that we'll be going into, we've padded a little bit of extra time. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Wendy, who will take us over through any GPS or WC online updates for the team. So Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Cyrus. So I just want to give Cyrus a hand because he did an excellent job of going through talking about the mission, vision, and goals, which is important for everyone to know going forward so that we have some focus on how we're doing this work and making sure that it's meaningful and impactful. So again, thank you, Cyrus. I know we've been working together for months to try to see how we could frame this without getting too many details, but just making sure people walk away with something. So thank you for that. So for people in math and English, we have been piloting the GPS Starfish system for the past year. And sad to say that that will come to an end in spring. In spring, we will go back to using WC Online for appointments and as our way of collecting data. The GPS system probably could have supported our needs, but we just didn't have the infrastructure and the support with the infrastructure to make sure that it was holistic for all of tutoring across the board. So we have decided to pivot and go back to WC Online. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if you all got an email, but starting next week, the rules have changed around masks, and everyone that comes on campus for your 3 days is going to be required to wear the K95 masks or the 95, or no, the K95 or the 95 mask. Yeah.
Yeah, and the K95 and KN95.
Okay, so Jose said the bulletin just came in. Okay, good. So for those of you that know last week, I know math, Judith had said that she had ordered some for the math IAs. English, I had some for you. I think the only people who I didn't give them out to were like Paulo, the people in the science LRC. Yeah, so I can get those to you all. They're supposed to get me a box either sometime later this week or next week. And then I'm going to be ordering them regularly for those people who want them. Because since they're making it that people have to wear it, then they're going to provide those masks for you. So I want to make sure that everybody's keeping in line with the guidelines of what they've set forth. They said cloth masks are not permissible. So I know some people have their favorite cloth masks, but they are not going to allow for people to wear those. They don't feel like that protects you enough. So just wanted to give people a heads up with that. Also, I know people have been asking me what is going to be the guidance as far as working on campus for spring. As of now, nobody said any different. So right now, I think we'll still be doing 3 days a week on campus. If that changes, I will let you all know. But I think right now, it's still going to be the 3 days a week on campus. Also, for people, I want you, if you're going to take a spring break, which is April, I think 11th, that week of April 11th off, that's spring break for our students. If you're going to take that week off, please, please, please send me your report of absence form request to take vacation during that time immediately, like within this week, so I can adhere to scheduling. In the past few years, since we've been remote, we have kept the labs open, which, if we were on ground, it would be closed, the physical space would be closed. But since we're virtual, we have kept the labs open for people to be able to continue to tutor in case students want to come in for tutoring during their spring break and kind of get caught up on things. So again, I know I met with the English IAs on Monday, and I did have a couple of people already turn in their report of absence that plan to take vacation during that time. But for the math people and anyone else in the other 2 areas, please get me those report of absence forms if you're going to take vacation during that time. And then make sure that going forward, you all are taking your in lieu days before the end of the fiscal year. And remember, the Cesar Chavez Day is supposed to be taken between January of 2022 and June of 2022. So you have that option to take that time. So just making sure that people don't have lag time and don't take those days. Does anybody have any questions? And let me scroll through because I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any hands raised.
I have a quick question.
Okay, go ahead. I think that's Nathan's voice.
Yeah, when you have in lieu of day coming up, do you prefer, or what's the word I'm looking for? Do you like when we let you know, or do you already have that like?
Yes, I like if you'll let me and the coordinator know, and for English, Martha, for you all, and then for math, it would be Judith and Christina to know. Just because although we have the we have an Excel sheet that has it all in, obviously we're not calculating and making sure, of when people's days are. They have access to them too, though, to kind of see when those days are. Yes, Karen, there is a way to go back and look at the list. I'll get that for you. I'll email you directly and tell you which days. Lisa, you have your hand raised?
Yes. I was wondering about those blackout dates. We used to have dates where nobody could take vacation or take days off. I checked with Martha and she said that she's checking with somebody else because she hasn't gotten any recent information about that. So
yeah,
do
so
you know?
Those are days that I would have sent out to you. I'm trying to think, did I do it? Because I don't remember, because I would have emailed you all. Usually the blackout days are days that are at the beginning of each term. So, and especially with academic affairs, the VP, he just emailed us recently where he's saying, okay, so Cindy's saying, I did let you know. I think I usually give it to you in May or like at the end of the year for the upcoming year. So,
I looked for an old email. I didn't see an old email, but
yeah, I'm sure it had to have been, but I'll look back too and I could resend that. But also the new VP, he really has talked about the fact that he's adhering to these blackout days, which are usually like the first week of every semester. Like he doesn't want people taking vacation or being out first week of semester. So usually it's like the first week of fall, the first week of spring, even for the winter and summer some terms too. So
yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? Yeah. I don't see anyone else. So with that, we're gonna go on break. When we come back, we have Dwayne Boyd, and I'll read his bio when we come back. He's going to be presenting for this last half. I know a lot of people have their cameras off, but he always says that his presentation goes a little better if people have their cameras on. I know some people can't turn their cameras on, and that's fine, but hopefully you'll engage in what he has to say. I think I like his presentation. Cyrus and we did a run through of it yesterday, and I think you can walk away with some meaningful information, especially around equity and allyship and in-group and out-group bias. So with that, I'm going to let you all go on your break. Please be back by 11:30 so that we can continue with the retreat and, leave on time. Okay, so the break is from 11:15 to 11:30. We're a couple of minutes early, so go take your break and then come back and we'll finish up the last hour.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Wendy. Yes, this room will stay active. I will. I'll be monitoring the room, but you're more than welcome to stay in this room and have this window up when we get back at 11:30. So. Break.
How does it feel to be a sports fan and see someone wearing a jersey supporting your team? Feels pretty nice, right? Well, what about if you see someone wearing a sweatshirt from the college that you went to? Because of psychology, you automatically have something to talk about. Or maybe you're traveling abroad and you see someone in a hat that says they're from the United States or even your specific hometown. It's natural to feel more comfortable and trusting whenever you know someone similar is around. But also, what happens when you see someone from a rival sports team? Why do these feelings happen? Why are we more likely to trust someone just because of their sports team affiliation, where they grew up, or other factors that may be similar to us? And why do we inherently fear or distrust people who don't belong into these groups? One explanation is the idea called the in-group bias. Now this video is all about the in-group bias and how it may shield our judgment whenever we judge others, distribute resources, or make other decisions. Now this can be an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially when it involves groups like people of a certain race, ethnicity, or gender. But I can say the more that we truly understand our implicit biases, then only can we start to overcome them and create a more fair world for everyone. So first off, what is the in-group bias? In-group bias, or in-group favoritism, is a bias in which people tend to favor others who exist in similar groups as themselves. These groups could be formed by gender, race, ethnicity, hair color, or even a favorite sports team. Because of the in-group bias, we tend to overwhelmingly favor people who are similar to us and belong to our groups. However, in-group bias is not just related to thoughts and preferences. We are also more likely to act if the actions are more likely to favor the members of the in-group. Now, of course, on a dark side, this means that we're more likely to look down on people who exist outside of our groups.
So that's an overview of the in-group bias, and we're going to talk about it in more detail. So when we talk about the in-group bias, let me shift. Hopefully everybody can see my screen again now. As we talk about the in-group bias, one of the things I just want to highlight is that we're talking about implicit bias. These are biases that we all have. All of us have our own definition of what's a part of our in-group and those who are part of our out-group. And so what I hope to accomplish today is just to have us all analyze that and to actively try to expand those we perceive as part of our in-group and to try to have more favorable impressions of those who are part of our out-group. But let's talk about why there is an in-group bias. One of the reasons is historically there have been groups that have been treated poorly, so particular groups that weren't welcome in the United States for many different reasons, whether it's race, religion, ethnicity. And one of the positive ways of having an in-group bias is that you would prefer those individuals who are part of your group as a way of protecting yourself. So historically, this is one of the ways in-group biases could occur. That protection, that bias could be problematic in the workplace if it's favoring one group or the other in terms of those in the workplace, especially if it's related to any of the protected categories such as race or gender. And fosters a need to improve self-esteem. If you feel like your situation, your group, your membership is better than those who are not a part of your group, it makes you feel better about being that. So it's a way to be able to foster your own sense of self-esteem. But overall, it creates a us versus them scenario, a zero-sum proposition, that in order for my group to be perceived well, I have to put down another group. And we hope to be able to overcome that type of bias as we move through this today. So I'm going to talk to you about the neuroscientific evidence for in-group bias. Thanks to the advances in MRI imaging, magnetic resolution imaging, we can see what part of your brain is activated when you interact with people who you perceive as part of your in-group. As you can see by the video, there's many different ways you can define the in-group. Each person has a different definition. It could be your favorite sports team. It could be people who work in your actual office or your university as a whole. But however you perceive them, there's certain things that happen in your brain when you interact. And when I say interact, it means either you can be on a phone call with them, you could see an image of the person, you could be on a video chat, you could be in person. And what we see from that is that in image A, the part of the brain that is activated when you are interacting with somebody who you perceive as part of your in-group is the part of the brain that controls empathy, sympathy, and compassion. So in image A, you see that whenever a person hears a voice, even sees a picture, interacts with the person they're in group, automatically, non-voluntarily, the part of the brain that is activated is the part that controls empathy, sympathy, and compassion. Let's think about what that means. It means that your brain is automatically primed to receive information from those who are part of your in-group. The three components really go to having an open mindset, being willing to receive information from those who are in your in-group. Conversely, as you can see by diagram B, those who are in your out-group don't have that same benefit. So unless you are actively engaged in opening up and trying to be empathetic, sympathetic, and compassionate, you have to, when you're interacting with people in the out group, you have to try to open those parts of your brain up. It's not an automatic portion. What I've seen from doing this work as a great example for this is that I hear this often. I've heard it from women often, sometimes from people from different ethnic groups, but that they will say something in a meeting and the person who's running the meeting, the powers that be in the meeting, don't hear it. Then another person, a man or a person from a different group who's part of the in-group will say it, and all of a sudden it's perceived as a great idea. It may be intentional, but it may also be just due to this neurological aspect that we are not open to receiving information, extending compassion and understanding to those who are not a part of our in-group. So when the person who first says it, who's a part of the out-group says it, it's not heard. But then a person will say the exact same thing in the in-group, and all of a sudden it's realized. We don't want that to happen. We want the person who said it initially to take credit for it and to be recognized for it. But I just want to show that there may be a neurological reason why this occurs. So with that said, we're going to talk about specifically at SMC. I'm going to do another chat box activity. I'm going to ask you to please put in chat different in-groups that you may have seen or are aware of at SMC. I just want to see what kind of groups you may be able to identify at SMC that are part of the in-group. Based on this definition, and those are the people who tend to have the ability to make decisions, who have a sphere of influence, who can control and direct those of others. I mean, the obvious one that always comes up is managers versus non-managers, but I want to hear more specifically, what are some of the in-groups that might exist at SMC? I will pause to give you a chance to put that in the chat. So I see athletes, classified versus certificated, the police department, science majors, different department and faculty, tenured instructors, parking enforcers, janitorial staff, these are all great examples of those that can be part of the in-group, permanent versus non-permanent. Great, very good. Thank you for your active participation in this. So as we continue through, we're going to look at the out-group bias. And so we saw all of the benefits that those who are part of your in-group receive. Let's talk about the consequence of those who are a part of the out-group. And Cyrus, once more, I'm going to turn it over to you for a video on the out-group bias.
Absolutely, thank you, Dwayne. Let's see if we got it this time. All right, does everybody see the video?
We see the file, but it doesn't show, it's not showing the actual video.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. 1 second, folks. How about now?
Yes.
Yes, oh, perfect. Yay, thank you.
One of the ideas intertwined with in-group and out-group bias is something called out-group.
The sound went out.
The sound is missing.
Can you back it up, Cyrus? Because the sound went out.
My apologies. Okay. Let's give it one more try.
One of the ideas intertwined with in-group and out-group
sound.
The sound went out.
Sound? Yeah, okay. 1 second, folks.
One of the ideas intertwined with in-group and out-group bias is something called out-group homogeneity bias, and studies found that we do more than just view out-groups less favorably than our in-group. Those studies have also revealed that we are more likely to view the members of an out-group as interchangeable, all with the same unfavorable traits. The out-group homogeneity bias suggests that it is easier for us to remember individuals in an in-group rather than an out-group, partially because they all blend together. If you've ever heard someone use stereotypes about one gender or one race or one ethnic group, this might sound familiar. Stereotypes paint all people of one outgroup of having a certain set of unfavorable qualities. When these stereotypes are used, they are done so without distinguishing any one person in the outgroup from another. Everyone in the outgroup is treated the same. Imagine if someone said to you, "I tried the McDonald's on Route 291 and it sucked. Therefore, I believe all McDonald's suck." This happens all the time with people, except instead of a restaurant, it's a religion, or it's a race, or a belief system, or even financial situations. Clearly, outgroup bias can have some serious consequences. We may judge people before we even know them. We may withhold help from people just because of the color of their skin or the football team that they root for. In order to ensure a more fair world, we have to be aware of the outgroup bias. And this is something that all humans are guilty of, just like any other cognitive bias. By being mindful of our thoughts and actions and understanding that our biases may be leading us astray, we can then make more impartial decisions and better judgments.
So that's just a quick overview of the outgroup bias and some of the consequences we have. Once more, just reiterating that we all have our own in-group and out-group biases. So as an activity, and just want to make sure you can see the screen, please put in chat examples of those who are part of the out-group. I asked you earlier for examples of those in the in-group. Give me some examples of those who are part of the out-group. Adjuncts, women, any other examples of those who may be perceived as part of the outgroup? People of color, homeless people, great, I thank you for those different definitions of those, particularly at your organization, that can be perceived as part of the outgroup. So we're going to go back to the presentation now, and we're going to walk through some more of the aspects of the in-group and out-group bias. One of the things that I want to share is the importance, as we talk about in-group and out-group, of allyship, how allyship is important and why it's important. Like we gave you some definitions earlier of what is an ally. We had things in terms of like friends or advocates, those who support others. That was a definition, but for today's working definition, we're going to use this. An ally is an individual who is willing to take action to support and support those who are a part of the outgroup and remove barriers for those in the outgroup, and will use their privilege influence for the good of those in the outgroup. When I talk about privilege today, because it can be a controversial term, I'm saying it specifically is that your membership in the in-group, however we're talking about it, and we could talk about it by race, we could talk about it abled versus differently abled, we could talk about it by gender. Whoever's in that in-group, that membership in that in-group is the privilege. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about allyship and being an ally. What an allyship can do is it can create an inclusive and an environment that allows everyone to have a seat or a voice at the table. Even if they're not physically there, the ally can represent their interests at a table. It can interrupt and stop implicit biases. Like we already said, everybody has a bias, and we can see that there's a neurological reason why that happens. But the person who's an ally can actively help overcome that bias and really represent others in the room who may not have a voice, who may not feel comfortable speaking up, and who are not have a seat at the table. It can be a grassroots effort, and anyone can serve as an ally. One of the important things about allyship is that I may be an ally as a cisgendered male. I may be able to be an ally for a person who's differently abled. A woman may be able to be an ally for me. Like, you can be an ally in one capacity and then need an ally in a different capacity. So all of us have the opportunity to be empowered through allyship. So once again, we're going to go into now another discussion, and this one's going to go in a little bit more detail. We talked about what an ally is. You've identified some of those that are part of the in-group, and we talked about some of those who are part of the out-group, specifically at SNC. We're going to break into small breakout rooms, no more than 3 to 4 participants per breakout room. I'm going to ask you for a quick conversation, 8 to 10 minutes, about some strategies that allies could use to help particular groups. What are some of the things allies in your particular institution organization can do to try to help those who are part of the out group? You can give specific examples for this in group could help this out group, or you can give generic examples of how this would work. Cyrus is going to break you into small breakout groups. We're going to ask you, once you get into the breakout room, to identify a group leader. We're going to ask you then to come back out and to just debrief, whoever that group leader is, briefly debrief in a few statements about what are some of the thoughts and ideas that you have been able to identify that could be useful at SNC. You don't have to reveal who's in your group. That's not necessary unless you want to when you come back out. But what we really want is the information to be able to create like a shared experience here of ways allyship can be a really useful tool in the workplace. So Cyrus, I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Dwayne. So I'm going to open the rooms right now. Whenever you see the dialogues screen pop up, just go ahead and accept or enter the room, and that'll break everyone out. And Ms. Sherry, definitely got your message. Thank you so much. All right. So I will open up the rooms right now, and we'll see you back in 8 to 10 minutes.
Enlightening, and then we're able to exchange some ideas. I'm going to ask for the group leader for group number 1 to please unmute and just share with us what was some of the discussion in your particular breakout room.
Hi, I am Judith Moser, and I believe I was the group leader for group 1. And we came up with a couple of very specific examples. So one of them was Loretta. Loretta, a while ago, engaged in some outreach where she contacted the DSPS office. She met with the counselors to see how best we could accommodate our students that are in DSPS services. And then also specific examples are that we refer students to the bodega on campus and the different food pantries. And in the math department, we have textbooks and calculators for students, undocumented, homeless, and students that cannot afford to get those. Another point that we came up with is that oftentimes we have to be confident to the students, and we have to be the ones that get the full story from them. They're not necessarily always willing to just tell us what's going on in their life. Sometimes it takes asking some questions and finding out in order for us to be able to make the appropriate judgment calls. And then we also thought about the differences right now in between math and English. So the math department has full-time instructional assistants and English does not. And full-time instructional assistants as a resource is, provides such a great service, whereas part-time is just not quite there. We wish it could be there, but it is not. And then lastly, what we had is we often introduce our students to other services and employees on campus. We will say, oh, hello, this is Aline. She's the tutoring coordinator for business CSIS. Why don't I introduce you to her so that you can talk to her? So those were some of the things we were thinking of. And what we were also wishing for, what we thought would be great if there could be some campus tours. We work oftentimes in a silo. I work in the math complex, and this is all I really know, the math complex. But it would be so awesome if we could have a face to a name, or if I could say, I happen to know exactly what is going on in the science lab, where it is, and just have that connection face to face. That would be a wonderful thing if we could have that.
Judith, thank you so much. That was really helpful and really specific. So I thank you for that feedback, and thanks to all who participated in group number 1. So we'll move to the leader for group number 2, please. If you can unmute whoever the leader was for group number 2.
Who were the members in group?
We
I may
have
have been in group 2. I don't know.
Okay, I have a Jose V, a Judith M, a Lisa N, and a Wendy D.
Oh, so Judith went before, she went for group 1, but we were really group 2.
Okay, because there's 2 Judiths. Yes, I see that now. No, there's just one. So in group 1, then I have Edgar. I have, I don't want to speak names, Joseph. I have the Modern Language Tutoring Center. Was there a person from that particular group who would like to speak on behalf of that group?
My name's Edgar. I think I can speak for the group. I don't think we got around to electing anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Just briefly, it just seemed like we were concerned with how did allyship affect what we did in tutoring. And so I was just, all I could say was that whoever I'm tutoring, I'm totally there for. I'm on their side. I'd never thought of it in terms of allyship until this word came up, but I think it accurately describes the stance I employ in tutoring sessions. There was a question came up from Hamid Dresa, who wanted to know about, does the sort of the disability group do their own tutoring or something along that lines? I didn't know how to answer that. I know we handle all comers, but whether they have something separate, I'm not perfectly sure.
Okay, great. Wendy, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, to answer that question, they do, but all students, even with the disability, can come to any of the tutoring centers on campus.
Sure.
Okay. Edgar, thank you so much for sharing out for that. For room 3, I have Business and CSIS Tutoring Center, Christina A, Nova Press, Tate C, and Zane, I believe. And would a person from that please unmute and share for us?
Well, we didn't really have a group leader chosen, but Christina had some very specific concerns where she feels like she is out group on this campus. So she probably could share that.
Christina, do you feel comfortable sharing?
Thank you for putting me on the spot, Karen. There was an incident when my colleagues accused me that I was not support accused me in some way of several things, but they expected me to support a Romanian tennis player just because I was born in Romania. So that I think that is a clear example of bias, because I chose not to support that tennis player because of her values and her inability, lack of education, I would say, which she had access to free of charge in the country, knowing the system. So it's a different system from here, though. So I'm not saying that any person who lacks education should be disregarded or disrespected or not be supported. It was just because she had access to free education there, but she chose not to benefit from it. And then she became a role model, which I don't know if it's a good role model in her case. So that's because of that statement that I made. They believe that I didn't service our students in an unbiased way. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it does. Thank you for sharing that. And you highlighted a few opportunities for how things can be perceived as part of the in-group and out-group within that conversation. So I appreciate that. And it sounded like there could have been an opportunity for you to have benefited from a use of an ally to be able to, make sure that your perspective was shared and understood more clearly. So I thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move to room 4, and I have Edwin Cruz, M. Moore, and Nathan W. in that room. Can the person from that group please share?
Yeah, so I'll share. So we discussed a couple things. We discussed how to be how to be an ally within an in-group, and then we covered a couple examples. So the first thing we definitely said is that somebody needs to take the lead. Usually that's what happens in with an in-group to be an ally for individuals on the outside group. It takes somebody with an initiative, leadership skills to speak up for the group. Usually you might have other members within the in-group who might want to be an ally or speak up, but may not have the motivation, or maybe for different career reasons or political reasons might not speak up. But usually it takes one person to initiate it, and once that person speaks up within their circles, they amplify their voice through meetings or through different initiatives, then it kind of trickles into the group, and then you'll have that in-group, you'll have individuals become allies for other individuals. So we've seen a couple of examples here at SMC. I mean, one example that I brought up was, and then this was in the context of tutoring, when I was math instructional assistant for Adelante and Black Collegians. So within the context of those two programs, right, Latinx students, African-American students can be seen as the in-group within that program. But the time that I spent there, we helped out students that were outside of those groups. So Asians, Caucasians, we'd have students that would come to us to seek tutoring that weren't in the programs, and then in the process of helping them out and getting to see what the programs were all about, the workshops that we offered, counseling and everything else, they would then join the programs for whatever, for other reasons as well. And so that was a way of bringing people from outside too, and into our programs, and just kind of showing them around, and have them be included. So I know that we cater specifically to Latinx students, African American students, but we accept the students from all walks of life, all backgrounds, and it's open to all students at SMC. So that was what that was one way of being allies to other students outside of those groups. And the other thing we mentioned is just to be an ally, just to be mindful of individuals' background situations, to include them in. So there's other things we discussed, but yeah.
Thank you, Edwin. That was really helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And we'll go to room number 5, which was Loretta, Paulo, and Randolph.
Hi, I'm Loretta. We had a good discussion. We discussed a few things. One of the things we discussed was one of the things as coordinators, as a coordinator, I've thought about is hiring students, Black students or Latinx students, or even international students, because I think it's important that so hiring student tutors that are, Black students or Latinx students or students with disabilities or international students, because I think it's important that the students who come to our tutoring, see the student tutors that are helping them, that they see representation there in our tutoring center. So I think that's one important aspect that we can do. And another thing we discussed is, specifically for training, all the coordinators have been creating training that we can all use to train the tutors. And one thing recently I was reading about, I can't remember what the book was, but it was an excellent book about teaching and equity, and it was talking about trying to incorporate anti-racist practices, and then realized this instructor specifically was talking about incorporating anti-racist practices, and then realized even though she did that, she saved it for the end, right? Like, so if there's a 5-day training and you save the equity conversation to the 5th day, that's actually still sort of making it seem like it's a tack on or an add-on. It's like an afterthought or something extra that we have to do rather than foregrounding it. And I found that really helpful. And I've been incorporating that into my training. And it's interesting because I didn't think so much about it with race, but as a disability scholar, I've always foregrounded disability conversations. So that was really eye-opening for me to sort of recognize, oh, you know, I need to do that as well. That intersectionality plays a part in that. And then lastly, we talked about DSPS and communicating more with DSPS, as Judith mentioned. And I will say part of our conversation had to do with the challenges of being an ally for DSPS because of the regulations and the rules that we also have to follow. So some of that conversation I think needs to be ongoing, and sort of like how we deal with, you know, disclosure, asking about disclosure. And I think it's important to recognize that different schools, different campuses, you know, while ADA is the regulations we have to follow, different schools and campuses implement them very, very differently. And so how SMC implements it, in my opinion, is very challenging. And I think they do create barriers to allyship with the way DSPS is implemented at SMC. So that's my own kind of hobby horse. I would love to talk more about that, continue that conversation. And then lastly, Randolph pointed out that students often feel like the out group. So even them coming to tutoring, they're asking for help, and that can be really challenging. So keeping that in mind.
Thank you so much, Loretta, and all of those who were in room 5. We'll move to room 6 with Cindy K. And I am going to, unfortunately, not pronounce these properly. It's spelled Getahun, and Kate and Lee, and then Ann I have. So those in room 6, can somebody please unmute and talk?
I'm happy to talk. And the first thing we discussed was about just the smiling. And even with the mask on, you can smile with your eyes as a way to make people feel included. And then Cindy brought up about her interest in genealogy and wanting to know what your name means and where you come from as a result of that. So everybody gets to talk about that. And if anybody else wants to share what they had, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing was that Ann and I are not tutors. So how can we facilitate that? And that is to always be encouraging, regardless of where we are on campus. I think Cyrus said it earlier in his presentation. When you don't know the answer, you certainly can find a way to get to that answer for the student, even if it's just directing them. You know, you see people always walking on campus, and you can be approachable, like we said, by smiling. Be approachable so that you can direct people where to go, so that they don't feel like they're alone. And mainly us not being tutors, because this is mainly a group of tutoring, we can always be allies to anyone that approaches us, as long as we are approachable.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for giving that input, as well as for everybody who participated in that group. We'll go to the last group, which is room 7. I have Jessica, Larry, Michelle, Sarah, and Sherry.
There is actually Maria as well. She just has the wrong name there. But,
okay, so thank you.
Sure. So we spoke. I actually I jumped the gun and put our write-up in the chat. Sorry about that, but it's there if you want to have a look at it as well. But we talked about pronouns can be instant allyship. Sherry Bradford and Loretta, I see, have their pronouns already on their Zoom. So it just shows this mindfulness of, I know that some people have different pronouns, and that's kind of an immediate allyship. Noticing that anything said in an in-group, if you're only in your own in-group, but someone says something that perpetuates, you know, racism or sexism or ableism, some systemic issue, calling them out. Don't be afraid to make it uncomfortable if they need to be educated. People who speak a language with an accent, speak English with an accent, they're automatically perceived as being in an out group. That was interesting. And we were saying, well, you know, sometimes as a tutor, we're really interested in where are you from and what's the languages, because we just want to learn about them. But it was suggested maybe wait for that to come up organically. Don't just immediately ask that as soon as you hear an accent, because that person's put in a box rather than given the opportunity to explain more of their whole self before talking about their background. People who are deaf or with disabilities may be incorporating signs into speech or ways of being inclusive. They're again not immediately on that out group. And being deaf is hard because you can't necessarily see the disability, and so sometimes they're automatically just not included. So being mindful of that, putting yourself in people's place and be empathetic, especially for Black people. Immediately judged and dismissed based on color, you know, before you even meet that person, immediately those biases are kicking in. So just check yourself and try to be empathetic to, they might also be experiencing discomfort, right? try to make it feel inclusive. Mispronunciation, intentional or just persistent mispronunciation of foreign or non-traditional names. Really belittling, right?
Hi.
So ask about pronunciation, be thoughtful and intentional when addressing others. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a lot. I will tell you, Cyrus in his infinite wisdom gave me a cushion of time to go over an hour. And I was just telling him yesterday, oh, I never go long. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to go long, but it's for good reasons, because you had such robust input during this section. So I really want to thank all of you for really thinking about it and talking about how allyship can really be a successful tool. I'm really passionate about allyship, and I'll tell you why. Is that I've worked in diversity for many years in many different capacities. And there was a time when I just really didn't think that we were moving the needle around diversity. And then, you know, with the murder of George Floyd, we saw a resurgence in terms of the energy around this. And when I was doing trainings, people really didn't know how to be empowered. They just didn't know how to be empowered. And so when I came across allyship as a way to empowering people, it left them with a specific way they can move forward. And through this discussion, what was highlighted was how, like, you could be in an in-group one place and then in the out-group in another place. And I'll just go back to what Edwin shared in terms of working with Latinx and Black African-American students, that could be an in-group, but in the overall culture of the institution, they could be a part of the out group. So it changes from place to place, but all of us have the opportunity to be an ally, and all of us have the opportunity to need an ally. And that's why I think this is really powerful. So I'm going to go through and give you some more specific examples of successful allyship. And one of the ones that really is pronounced is the movement around same-sex marriage and marriage equality. Back in 2009, as you could see, there were only a few states that legally allowed same-sex marriage. But less than 6 years later, the entire nation had approved same-sex marriages. And that's really quick amount of time for something that has been around for the majority of our country as something that was not sanctioned. And this is a prime example of how allyship really was able to move the needle forward. Obviously, LGBTQ plus individuals played a significant role in trying to challenge legislation and to raise this to national consciousness, but it wasn't done alone. It was done with the help of allies, family members, politicians, etc., to be able to see how this was able to move so quickly nationwide in a 6-year period of time. Now, and obviously there were, things that were happening before 2009 to try to get to that point, but this was just a striking example of how allyship and advocacy can really work to move it forward. I'm going to give you a case study to show you exactly how powerful allyship can be. The researchers here conducted a case study on Twitter, and for a 2-month period, whenever they saw the use of the N-word in the tweet, either Rashid, the Black user, would respond, or Greg, the white user, would respond. So one of the others respond whenever they saw the use of the N-words in tweets that came across their Twitter accounts. And what they tweeted was the exact same message. Hey man, just remember that there are real people who are hurt when you harass them with this kind of language. So in this situation, obviously Greg, the white user, could be an ally, and Rashid, the Black user, would be a member of the out group. So what we saw after 2 months on this particular research was that Greg, the white user, noticed a significant decrease in the use of the N-words to those that he tweeted back to. 50 people tweeted the N-word 186 fewer times. The fact that we're even having this conversation about the N-word, is just problematic. But for the sake of this, demonstrating this, is that, and he received people who wrote back to him, tweeted back to him, thanks, I wasn't even thinking about it. Oh, what you say made me think about it. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I'm going to do better. Conversely, the Black user, Rashid, received an increase of hate speech and an increase of the N-word, even though they both tweeted back the exact same message. So I use this as a powerful example of how it's not only what is said, but who's saying it that can really be powerful. And when people who are part of the in-group, however that's defined, are able to advocate for those who are in the out-group, it's perceived more powerfully than those who are part of the out-group trying to advocate on their own behalf. And so let's talk about the continuum for allyship. You can start off with apathy. You can be aware that there's a problem. You can move to being active, and ultimately you can be an advocate. And there were some great examples that all of you gave when we were debriefing out on the small group discussion about how you can really advocate. And in order to be an ally, you really have to be moving towards that advocacy part. And that was one of the definitions that a person gave early on when I was asking what is an ally. They mentioned an advocate, and that is 100% correct. They're committed, they're routinely championing, they're testing their own understanding and biases. That's when an ally can be very, very impactful. So small actions in allyship at the workplace can really have a huge impact. And it really is just small actions. Acknowledge credit when credit is used. I gave the example earlier, if somebody says something and another person says it, and then all of a sudden it's heard, a third person reaches up and go, that is a great idea. And I really appreciate it when X, the person who initially said it in the meeting as well, to acknowledge that they had also made that comment. Telling someone, about sexist, racist, inappropriate jokes and comments at work, you can certainly do that. And encouraging a colleague to apply for leadership. If you're part of the in-group and you reach out to a person in the out-group and say, hey, this might be a good opportunity, it can have a profound impact. And another reason this is important, talk about the minority taxes. And the minority can be defined however as part of the out-group. But if they're the ones who are responsible for having to always advocate, if we just look at it based on race and using the example on Twitter with the N-word, when Rashid tried to advocate for himself and didn't want to have to see that word used across his Twitter feed, not only was it met with vitriol, but it was also taxing to him to have to be kind of re-triggered by this process when he was just trying to have a modicum of decency in terms of the tweets that he was reviewing. So that becomes taxing, and you can see on the screen some of the negative consequences that can have on individuals if they have to advocate for themselves, and oftentimes they're not the best advocates the ally is. We can all be an ally. We all need an ally. We can all be an ally. And, this really speaks to larger societal issues and kind of highlights the moral standards that we have and that we want, and just the whole concept of us versus them. And so the goal is to try to really expand beyond just this us versus them, in-group, out-group, and just really hopefully seeing us all as capable, unique individuals who bring something great to the team, but being conscious that we all have our own biases, and then being aware, if you're in the in-group, how you could be a powerful advocate for those who are in the out-group. And if you're in the out-group, knowing that sometimes you may need an ally and seeing how you can try to ask and promote allyship. We're going to end with a video, and I'll switch it over to you, Cyrus, and I'll just come back briefly after that to say goodbye.
Absolutely. All right. Sharing. And here we go.
Something different with my setup, and I don't. Hey friends! So I'm trying something different with my setup, and I don't know if it's working, but you will deal. Imagine your friend is building a house, and they ask you to help, but you've never built a house before. So it'd probably be a good idea for you to put on some protective gear and listen to the person in charge, otherwise someone's gonna get seriously hurt. Look, I'm helping! It's the exact same idea when it comes to being an ally. An ally is a person that wants to fight for the equality of a marginalized group that they're not a part of. We need your help building this house, but you probably should listen so you know what to do first. Let's do this. So here are my 5 tips for being a good ally. Understand your privilege. Now, a lot of people get hung up on the word privilege, so let me break it down for you nice and easy. Privilege does not mean that you are rich, that you've had an easy life, that everything's been handed to you and you've never had to struggle or work hard. All it means is that there are some things in life that you will not experience or ever have to think about just because of who you are. It's kind of like those horses that have those blinders on. They can see just fine. There's just a whole bunch of stuff on the side that they don't even know exists. So for example, there are currently 29 states where you can legally be fired for being gay, and there are 34 states where you can legally be fired for being trans. Now, as a straight cis woman, those are things that I don't have to ever think about if I don't want to. I'm not going to be fired because I'm straight, and I'm not going to be fired because I am cis. So it makes sense that before I can fight for the rights of others, I have to understand what rights I have and others don't. That's privilege. Listen and do your homework. It sounds like a no-brainer, but it's not possible for you to learn if you aren't willing to listen. So you gotta know when to zippa the lippa. I don't know. You get what I mean. But that's the thing that's so cool about social media. There are so many people sharing their stories all around the world and connecting with people that they normally would never get a chance to without the power of the internet. So do your homework. Start reading blogs, tweets, news articles, and stories so that you can get caught up on the issues that are important to the communities that you want to support. Speak up, but not over. If the Fight for Equality was a girl group, the ally wouldn't be the lead singer or the second lead singer. They'd be Michelle. An ally's job is to support. You want to make sure that you use your privilege and your voice to educate others, but make sure to do it in such a way that does not speak over the community members that you're trying to support or take credit for things that they are already saying. This isn't Mario Kart. Stay in your lane. Realize that you're gonna make mistakes and apologize when you do. Nobody's perfect. Unlearning problematic things takes time and work, so you are bound to mess up and trip and fall. But don't worry, you can brush yourself off and get right back up. I'm back up! Just remember that it's not about your intent, it's about your impact. So when you get called out, make sure to listen, apologize, commit to changing your behavior, and move forward. Last but certainly not least, actually the most important thing on this list, is remember that ally is a verb. Saying you're an ally is not enough. You gotta do the work. 1 through 4. 1 through 4. As always, there are links in the video description box to some of the things I mentioned in this video, along with some resources that have been really helpful for me as I've gone along in my journey to be more conscious. So I want to hear from you in the comments. What are some sites that you suggest?
So thank you, and I just want to say real quick, I apologize for not having that caption as part of being inclusion. I try to make sure everything's 508 compliant, but we had a corrupted file just yesterday, so Cyrus stepped in and helped me out with that, but I do apologize for that not being captioned. But I do want to thank you all for your active engagement for today. This hour went by really, really quickly. You'll receive some more follow-up information from me in a few days and in a few weeks, just to kind of keep this at front of mind in terms of how you can be a powerful allyship. It has been a privilege to present to all of you today, and I wish you all well on your journey for being allies and maybe one day needing an ally and hoping that they're there for you. So thank you all very much, and that's all I have to conclude for today. And thank you, Wendy, for inviting me, and thank you, Cyrus, for all your support with technology. Thank you all very much.
Thanks so much.
Let's
wonderful.
Give it up to Dwayne, please.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your session. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you all for participating during that session. Dwayne will come back in the spring as well and do another session with us on what they call uncovering, which is very interesting, new concept about allowing people to come and be who they are authentically in the workspace and how you get more from that. So I'll schedule that sometime later in the spring. But Cyrus, did you have anything?
I do, yes. Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you all so much for being part of today's session. It was an honor to be part of this specific audience in this group today. I don't get to liaise with a lot of other coworkers, so this was very fun and super engaging. I do have some prizes for folks. So I owe something for Jessica as well as Edwin for participating in our earlier chats readouts. So I think is Dwayne still here? No?
No, he's gone.
Okay, no worries. Dwayne had 2 chat activities So Wendy, I'll ask for your help on this one. There were 7 comments made for who is for an in group. So choose a number between 1 and 7, Wendy.
No, I'm thinking 7.
What's that?
I'll say 7.
7. All right.
Lucky
that one will a prize will go to I've lost the name, but it's under the business and
Oh, that's
CSIS.
Eileen. Yeah,
Eileen, perfect. All right. So Eileen, you'll get a prize for that chat activity. There was a second group chat activity that was identifying who's an out group at SMC. I had 9 entries for that. So Wendy, choose a number between 1 and 9.
3.
3, perfect. The prize will go to Lisa Nieves. So definitely expect something. Yay! And for those that courageously shared on behalf of their groups as leaders or speakers, there were 7 of those, and I believe I caught all 7 of them. But those that did manage to speak out as a leader, those 7 people will also get yoga mats. So I already have note of who those are. That's Judith Mosher, Edgar, Christina Arsene, Edwin Cruz, Loretta Hoyser, Ann Mursky, and Cindy, and Jessica Thomas. So everybody's making out like a bandit today with prizes. So thank you all so much. I think that formally concludes our retreat. So thank you all again.
There's only one last thing I thought of too, is I want to make sure, and most people have been doing it, but make sure when you come on campus that you're filling out that employee kind of symptoms form, because that's been very helpful, because some people have been having some symptoms and the form will literally say like, no, you can't come to campus. And that's a way of like keeping track for us, for people as they may present symptoms, because some people have gotten COVID and some people haven't, but have been exposed to people. So we just want to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. So please continue to do those forms, and you put me in as a supervisor and it'll stock up my email box with everybody's responses. But again, thank you all for showing up today. Thank you for participating. I think it was a great session. And that's it. You know, continue the great work. I appreciate all of you. And that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Hey, Wendy.
Yes.